She married him to bear his heir. After seeing them leave the castle, he said in anger, "What if I tried to escape from Anna in a crowded place?" He went quickly, saying to himself, "I must go after them immediately." At the same time, Seline was looking in amazement at the fountain in front of her, saying to herself, "What a beautiful fountain. I don't know many historical facts, but the market seems alive and crowded." Here she sat down by the fountain and said to herself, "I feel like I'm on a journey." Then she started thinking and said to herself, "Looking at it, I don't think the main content of the novel will be helpful at all. Unlike the original description, Baras is also very nice." Here she remembered him and said, "Yesterday, too, when Baras said to her, 'Take my hand,' and she did, she felt shy and started saying happily, 'I don't know, I've never been in a relationship before. At this stage, Baras and I, don't we seem like we're in a relationship?' But when she remembered his evil look, she stopped smiling and said, 'Hey, that's right. Let's just not dream anything. True, I can go out and I'm not locked up right now, but his nature hasn't changed yet. Still, I still want to have a relationship with Baras. He's even my favorite type.' Then she looked at Anna and smiled, saying, 'Why are you standing there like that? Come sit next to me.' Anna, 'Ah, yes, thank you.' And here Anna turned and noticed that Baras was watching them from afar. Here we will go back to the events when Baras decided to go after them and started saying to himself, 'Where are you now? You haven't left the castle gates yet, have you?' And here his assistant said, 'Your Majesty? In such a hurry?' But Baras didn't answer him and was saying to himself, 'Why does it seem like she's trying to run away from me?' And he opened the castle door, saying to himself, 'I want to grab her now and throw her in the bedroom.' At the same time, Seline and Anna arrived at the gate, and here Seline said happily, 'The weather is nice.' Baras had reached them but realized, saying to himself, 'Okay, Seline is an ordinary person with no sense of humor. There is no way to escape Anna's eyes, which have risen to the rank of royal knight of the empire.' So in tension, he said to himself, 'Why was I in such a hurry?' And then Anna noticed him and Baras gestured for her to go and not look at him, saying to himself, 'Okay, at this distance I can get there in no time if something happens, so it should be fine.' But Anna looked at him angrily and then continued on her way with Seline and Baras behind them. He looked at them and said to himself, 'If I see her trying to escape, I will catch her and tie her up.' And here we return to the present, where Seline is sitting by the fountain and he looks at her and says to himself, 'I just need a good reason, so this is a good opportunity.' Maybe there are other reasons to find fault with her." But they remained sitting by the fountain doing nothing. And here Baras got bored and said to himself, "Anyway, didn't you get tired of just sitting there? If you're just going to keep sitting, what's the point of going out? Hey, are you trying to check your escape routine in advance? Am I supposed to just go back?" And here the assistant said, "Imagine, he must have done all the work." But the truth is, he felt a little sorry for him. And here some people noticed him and found out who he was. And one of them bowed and said, "Hello, Your Majesty." Baras looked at the person's trembling hand and then looked away, saying to himself, "I can clearly see what you're thinking. The assassin who is said to be worse than the devil is your king. Although you feel safe, you will feel scared when you see me standing right in front of you. Whatever the case, the important thing now is not to lose Seline, no matter what happens." And here, when Seline laughed, he smiled too. And here the scene changes after Seline's return, and she took a bath, saying happily, "Ah, the refreshment. Now is the time for dinner." And here, when there was a knock on her door, she said in relief, "Come in." And she was shocked to find Baras standing in front of her and felt embarrassed and covered herself up, saying, "What?" Baras was also shocked and took her out and closed the door in his face. And here he lowered his head and said to himself, "I thought the time had passed for bathing, eating, and resting." He said this because he had already bathed and eaten. I even brought a gift and said to myself, maybe she doesn't love me already, but she'll hate me even more now. And here Anna arrived and said to him, Your Majesty. And in surprise she said, What's going on? At the same time, Seline was sitting on the floor saying to herself, I'm losing my mind. Of course I thought it was Anna. It's not like me now, but I'm trying to prevent it from happening. And here she imagined Baras saying to her, Ha! You're locked up. And she collapsed, saying to herself, What if he said this? Please give me another chance. Please. Baras was already behind her, and here she was surprised that he covered her up. He said, You'll cool down. Here, Seline felt embarrassed and said to herself, Thank you for being kind to me. Here, Baras was stunned and said to himself, She said, kind? Am I really kind? I think it's good that people see me differently. Then shyly he said to her, Well, I didn't do anything big. Then he turned his head to the side and said, I'll wait outside. Please call me when you're changed. We'll have dinner together. Here she looked at him shyly and said to herself, Together? And they did. Here she started to say to herself, This is the first time we've eaten together in the original story. There's no scene like this. Maybe, does he expect me to make a mistake? At the time, Baras was looking at her in anger. Here, when she looked at him and smiled, his heart skipped a beat, and he felt embarrassed. The angry expression on his face suddenly changed. And then he said, his hand trembling, By God, this woman, no one has ever done that before. How can she touch my body in such an informal way? Is she deliberately ignoring my tough appearance? Here, he took the gift to give it to her, saying to himself, It seems like I'm the only one who feels strange and regretful. Here, when Seline took it, she looked at it in amazement and said to herself, What is this? Can I open it? And Baras said to her, It's a gift. Open it. When Seline opened it, she was stunned by its beauty. Then she said to him, This is for me and Baras, of course. Here Seline fell silent, feeling shy. She was saying to herself, I know Baras might not care, but this is the first gift I've ever received from a man. He's actually trying to be nice to me. Then she said happily, So many things have changed from the original story. Maybe I can get along with him well now. I have hope. Baras was looking at her silently, saying to himself, Now I have no doubt the problem has already been solved. He imagined her saying to herself, I'll take this to a jewelry store or a pawn shop and sell it for at least 1,000 gold pieces, or I'll take it to the castle and demand generous compensation. Even though if she's caught trying to sell it, she'll have to run away, but it won't be easy for her to escape. Then he grabbed her, and all he had to do was treat her as a thing, just as he had decided at the beginning. Then he said angrily, Yes, I just have to catch her, and then she will cry every day while she was happy and saying to herself, This is the first gift I've ever received. The next day, Seline returned and went out with Anna. He was watching them from the window, then smiled and said to himself, Okay, everything is going according to plan. I also covered the Grand Duchess's local debt. I already told Anna about it, so all I have to do is wait for the right moment. He took his robe and said to himself, I just have to wait. The assistant watched him in silence and said to himself, At the age of 9, the Grand Duke entered the body of a war orphan and entered the enemy camp. After 2 years there, his body grew stronger, and he returned with the enemy's head. After he recovered, he returned to war when he was 13 years old. Since then, I have never seen my master look like this. He fell silent in tension and looked at him from the window, crying and saying to himself, I am happy that spring has come to you, my master. I will cheer for you, and... The scene changes, and he looks at Seline standing at a fruit vendor. He says to himself, What is that woman doing for the sake of hell's creator? The only thing she has bought so far is 2 apples, grilled chicken drumsticks, and a rough-looking leather wallet. He boiled with anger and said, It seems that she has no intention of running away. When they noticed his presence, they said to each other, "It is really the Grand Duke." But Baras didn't hear them, as he said angrily to himself, "When will her true intentions show up?" Then he looked at her and said, "Is it now?" But he was shocked when she took a small bag and said to herself, "That's it? What can she do with a small bag?" When she left with Anna, he kept looking at them and said to himself, "She should buy something strong that can carry a lot of weight." When Seline stopped at a shoe vendor, he looked at her as she thought and looked at the shoes and said, "You need a strong shoe with a low heel that you can run long distances in." But Seline left, followed by Anna, without buying any shoes. So Baras was furious and said, "How can such a frustrating woman exist?" When he found her sitting by the fountain feeding Anna, he said, "Why the hell did you go out and buy those things? Why didn't you leave as soon as you had the chance?" "Why?" And here she shared the food with Anna, smiling and happy. So Baras said in astonishment, "How can someone smile so happily like that? I certainly didn't take my eyes off her for a moment, and I don't even have an idea why she's smiling. What's making her laugh? I have no idea." And here Seline was smiling and saying to herself, "The chicken skewers are so delicious." Then she ate the rest of them and said to herself, "I still have a lot of money left and the weather is nice." But when suddenly a wind came, she said, "Oh, it's cold." And here she remembered when Baras covered her up, she said, "That feeling yesterday was really warm." And when she took his arm, she could see that he was very strong, so much so that it wouldn't matter if her whole heavy body fell on him. And every time I remember that, I smile in this world. Baras's loneliness was predetermined, but I was lonely too, and all my days were like that. Maybe we met and became a couple for a reason, and somehow I feel like we can agree. No, I really wish we could agree.